Okay. Good evening, class. Now, what we are actually going to do today is we are going to actually talk about the uh, we're going to talk about the literature review as we had been doing it in our last two classes. So this is the third part of it. So it's where we talk of the content, right? Literature review and research problems. So this is the third part, which is the content. So these are the things that we are going to talk about. We are going to talk about the problem or opportunity identification and the analysis tools. Okay. So understanding the problem analysis. So what is a problem? Problem, when we say it's as we say, it's one of the creative thinkers' fundamental rights, right? We have discussed this that most questions have more than one answer and most problems have more than one solution, right? So in keeping with this insight, what we know that there are more than one definitions of a problem. So, what are the tools and techniques for identification of the problem? Problem identification, what is it? What is a problem? A problem becomes known when an individual observes that there is a discrepancy between the way things are actually in reality and the way things ought to be, that differences. And for problems, identification of problems happen, we can use a variety of methods and sources, which is comparative or benchmarking studies, performance reporting, where we assessment of the current performance against goals and objectives done, SWOT analysis, where we assess the strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats through complaints, through surveys, through audit reports. So, what do we have to do when we analyze the problem? We are getting to the root of the problem. Sometimes the thing we think is a problem may not be the real problem. So, what do we have? What to get to the real problem? What is important is we need to probe. And when we study and analyze a problem, we must try to find out the root cause of the problem. Only then will be able to truly understand correctly what, how, or why certain things are happening. Now, when we are actually analyzing the problem, we must try to get information, for some of the information, that is, what is the cause of the problem or the factors, the relationship between the factors, the main specific underlying cause, the factors that management has control for fixing, and the ones on which they do not have control, uncontrollable. Say for the present situation in the present economic crisis, it's beyond the control of the organization. So, what are the tools for problem identification? Now, in most of the cases, what happens, organizations would have some ideas about their weaknesses, things or areas where they want to improve, or opportunities they want to explore, right? So, for we can start our preliminary work on our project by actually studying these areas which is indicated by the organization. So, these are the tools that you will be using in your research module again and again. SWOT, Steeples, Pestle, MOST, CATO, ABCD, Business Process Modeling, Porter's Forces, WISE analysis, Fishbone analysis, questioning technique, and other tools. This for problem identification. The tools for exploring opportunities are Scamper and brainstorming. Now, how would you study the tools? How can you do it? So the first thing that comes up is you have to get an idea about what the tool is. You should know how to use it. Look for examples where the tool has been used, and also you have to reflect on how to use this in your projects. So first tool that we have is SWOT. SWOT, as we said, it's a technique for assessing strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of any business. So that what happens, any business can actually make the best use of its strengths and opportunities which is there, and minimize or reduces the chances of failure by understanding what they lack, eliminate the hazards that would otherwise uh, have an effect on the organization all of a sudden. Okay, so when we talk of strengths, SWOT, S stands for strength, things your company does well, qualities that separate you from your competitors, internal resources like skills, knowledgeable staff, intangible assets such as intellectual property, capital, proprietary technologies. W stands for weaknesses, that is, things that the company lacks, things that the competitors do better than the organization, the resource limitations, unclear USP, unique selling proposition. O stands for opportunities, underserved markets for specific products, few competitors in the area, emerging need for the products and services, and press or media coverage of the company. T stands for threats, which is emerging competitors, changing regulatory environment, negative press coverage or media, changing customers' attitude towards the company. Okay, so SWOT analysis, these are some of the tips. You can always try a preliminary SWOT analysis with the information that you have in public domain. You can do that. Frame question for each part of the analysis you would like to know more, or where the limitation information that you have is limited. So these are the links which actually helps you how to do a SWOT analysis, and examples of some good SWOT which is done. Next that we have is steeple. Steeple analysis is it's a very popular and a simple strategic management method. It's used for analysis of the external environment of the organization. It's the basic method was PEST, based on which we have PEST, which is from there we had as the other analysis, that is SLEPT, PESTEL. So these all came up, and the last that came up was steeple, right? So along with PEST, political, economic, social, technological, the rest of the factors here in steeple is environment, ethical, and legal factors. Now, all of these tools gives direction on areas you should focus on, and how each of these components affect the organization. Now, when analyzing it, we must have to take a note on the extent and nature of effect of all these factors on the organization. And when we do the analysis, analysis will actually result in, it can have both positive as well as negative influence. The factors which is positive, which is giving a positive effect, should be actually explored for opportunities, and negative influence should be explored further to actually pinpoint the problems or the threats. So this is also a way how you can actually do it. So what are the five external factors that when we talk of steeple, right? First, as we say, socio-cultural. It's social forces that influences our attitudes, interests, opinions, create our behavior, and also what we purchase. Trends, they change. Trends changes according changes in the trends that have an impact on the on direct impact on the organization. That is, some of these factors where we talk of the structure of population, the falling rates, competition, increase of global population, traditions, level of education, cultural diversity, and standards. T, that is technological. Technological advancement in technology has a great impact in the way an organization runs. And today, what happens? Technological progress has created a society which expects instant results, right? It wants instant results. It's all because of globalization, innovation, right? So new technologies have resulted in a shorter product life cycle, increase of demand for new goods, and a faster exchange of information can benefit any organization because they're able to react quickly to any changes. Economic, it's the national interest rates, fiscal policy, these are there. Other than also they have also has an influence on the purchasing power of consumers, the structure of their expenditure. Some of these factors, economic factors, are where we talk of GDP, stock quote, currency rate fluctuations, rate of inflations, market substitutive factors, complementary goods, tax policy, price changes, revenue, savings, and level of unemployment. E stands for environmental. So here we're talking of environmental protection, the laws, pollution, waste management, clean air, water, energy saving technologies, attitudes towards ecology in society. Political. Political factors, what are these? They actually provide opportunity, ample opportunity of opportunities and advantages for organizations. What are these? These are basically the political situation, the stability, political stability, level of state interference, market regulation, trade agreements, tariffs, restrictions, taxes, lobbying, clarity of law. Legal. Legal actually involves all the regulatory and law determinants that can either affect positively or negatively on the market situation and decisions that the companies make. International companies must actually analyze the legal aspects and before they come and operate in an economy. Ethical factors, they are the duties, morality, integrity, behavior, what is good or bad, employees and society for good or society as a whole, everything. So okay, so this is where we talk of steeple. S is social, demographics, population growth, age distribution, education, cultural differences, lifestyles, trends, health and welfare, career, attitudes. T is technological growth, new innovation, skilled resources, automation, tech awareness, research. E stands for economic growth, exchange rates, interest rates, inflation, purchasing power, unemployment rates, income, investment opportunities. Environmental, weather, climate, environmental policy, atmospheric emissions. P, which is political, government policy, taxation, political stability, foreign trade, trade restrictions. L, that's legal, court system, employment law, discrimination law, antitrust law, trade unions, customer protection, health and safety, copyright law. Ethical is bribery, intellectual property, reputation, business ethics, confidentiality. Okay. Next that we have is PESTEL. We just spoke. PESTEL is also a framework for an organization to track the market that it operates in, where it operates, and it's very popular in for strategic analysis and market research. So what is it? P stands for political, E for economic, S for social, T for technological, L for legal, and E for environmental factors. And it is usually used along with SWOT analysis, but concentrates mainly on the external factors which may or is affecting the business, the current and the future position of the business. Okay, and just what do we have? Just a steeple, right? We must make a note of factors that have positive impact and factors that have negative impact, right? And it's very important for the management to be aware of these impacts, and so that they can accordingly respond to it, or if they whether they can decide if they have any plans for it. Some of the questions which can ask which one can ask while doing the pestle analysis is, what is the political situation of the country and how it can affect the industry? What are the prevalent economic factors? How much does culture has how much importance does culture has in the market, and what are its determinants? What are the technological innovations that are likely to come up and affect the market structure? Are there any current legislations that regulate the industry, or can there be any change in the existing legislations? What are the environmental concerns for the industry? So these are some of the questions which will help in doing the preliminary pestle analysis. So, see the factors. If you look into more details, political factors under pestle, they involve how and to what extent a government uh, intervenes in an organization or a specific industry, right? When we talk of economic factors, it actually determines the financial condition of an organization or a specific industry, which play a very important role in deciding the supply and demand models in the economy. Social factors are where we talk of demographic characters, norms, customs of the population within which the organization is functioning. which helps in understanding the organization, in understanding customers' needs more clearly. It also helps in understanding the type of local workforce that is there and the sustainable conditions under which they will be willing to work. Technological factors, like what happens, technology has played a very vital role in the health of any businesses, right? And today what has happened with the growth of technology, it's easy for organizations to get information very fast, and so they can take actions immediately. Some of the technological factors that we have is it's that is the research and development activities, automation, technical awareness. Environmental factors. Now, with the increase in the environmental awareness, businesses cannot actually neglect these factors, right? Also, where you have scarcity of raw materials, carbon footprint targets, pollution targets, that has even made the organizations actually being more conscious of when they're operating in an economy to be environmental conscious, right? Legal factors. Now, every business has to understand the legal conditions under which they would be operating in an economy. Some of these factors, legal factors, they overlap with the political factors, but they generally include more specific laws and policies such as discrimination laws, copyright laws, consumer protection laws, and so on and so forth. Right. So this is where the we have the diagram of PESTEL. P, that is political, government policy, political stability, corruption, foreign trade policy, tax policy, labor law, trade restrictions. E, economic growth, exchange rate, interest rates, inflation rates, disposable income, unemployment rates. S, that is social, political growth rate, age distribution, career attitudes, safety emphasis, health consciousness, lifestyle attitudes, cultural barriers. T, which is technology, technological incentives, level of innovation, automation, R&D activity, technological change, technological awareness. E, that is environment, weather, climate, environmental policies, climate change, pressure from NGOs, and legal, which is discrimination law, antitrust laws, employment laws, consumer protection laws, copyright and patent laws, health and safety laws. Everything comes here. So see this. This is the pestle analysis of a very important, very famous company, Coca-Cola. It's an example for you to actually go through it and get a better idea. These are some of the websites which gives you a better information of pestle and how to solve problems. Next that we have is Cato analysis. What is Cato analysis? It's a technique which is used for understanding a stakeholder's perspective and the impact that this view will exactly have on the on in the direction of the changes that the businesses bring about. So looking into the problems from understand from the stakeholders perspective and then bring about changes. So it's basically used to identify what it is that the business is trying to achieve, what are the problem areas, and how stakeholder perspectives affects the people involved in it. Unlike any business, usually what happens, stakeholders will have ideas about the direction of that the organization should take, the requirements that needs to be addressed, the what are the options for improvement, the solutions that should be implemented. But what happens, these views actually, how do they come up with their ideas? It comes from their own personal beliefs, concerns, values, priorities, and it is from this perspective that this forms a basis of for strongly held opinions from which deviation is challenging. So failure to consider these perspectives can result in serious challenges later in the project. Why? Because any differences of opinion develop into conflicts, and this may be seen in conflicting priorities placed upon different upon business requirements or the emergence of conflicting requirements. So, Cato analysis, it can be used at various stages of the business change life cycle and for many purposes during a project, especially for understanding a stakeholder's perspective of the business system, analyzing the source or actual conflict between stakeholders, considering different priorities assigned by stakeholders, to options, needs, or requirements, and developing a business activity model from which to perform gap analysis. So when we say CATO, what is C stands for customers. These are the stakeholders, beneficiaries, or victims of the products from business system. So who is on the receiving end? What problem do they have now? How will they react to what you're proposing? Who are the winners and losers? A stands for actors. These are the stakeholders role who carry out the task and activities within the transformation. That is, who are the people who will do the thing, who will be doing carrying out your solution, what is the impact on them, how might they react. T stands for transformation, which is the main business activity that delivers the services to the customer. What is the process of transforming inputs into outputs? What are the inputs? Where do they come from? What are the outputs? Where do they go? What are all the steps in between? W stands for worldview. That's the underlying beliefs and meaning that explains why a business activity exists. What is the bigger picture into which the situation fits? What is the real problem that you're working on? What is the wider impact of any solution? O stands for owner. It's a stakeholder role who would instigate change or cause the system to cease to exist. Who's the real owner of the process or situation you're changing? Can they help you or block you? What would cause them to get in your way? What would lead them to help you? And E stands for environment. It's the constraints that is imposed within the environment surrounding the business activity. What are the broader constraints that act on the situation and your ideas? What are the ethical limits, laws, financial constraints, limited resources, regulations, so on and so forth? What might these constraints, how might these constraints, these actually constrain your solution? How can you get around them? Okay, so this is where what we have is CATO. Now this is an exam. This is if you see the table. C is customers, the beneficiaries of the business process. How does the issue affect them? A stands for actors, who's involved in the situation. T is transformation. What is the transformation that lies at the heart of the system? W is worldview. What is the big picture and what are the wider impacts of the issue? O is owner. Who owns the process or situation being investigated? What role do they play? E stands for environment. What are the constraints that will impact the solution and what its success? These are some of the websites which talks more of how to use CATO. Okay, next that we have is ABCD analysis. What is it? It's a technique which is used to analyze a business model and study its effectiveness for providing value to its stakeholders, for having sustainable profit through expected revenue generation. So ABCD, A stands for advantages, B for benefits, C for constraints, D for disadvantages. So when you apply ABCD analysis, it will result in a list of business advantages, benefits, constraints, and disadvantages in a systematic matrix. And this entire framework it's actually divided under various issues or area of focus, various business deployment factors which affects the business concept that can be identified, analyzed under each issues by identifying suitable, critical, effective element. And these issues can be organizational issues, operational issues, technological issues, customer issues, social or environmental issues. So, what are the steps that you take for applying ABCD framework? First, identify the major issues that is related to that company. It could be these issues could be with regards to organization, operation, administration, people involved in the organization, those who are dependent on the organization, technology, business environment, anything. So you need to know, right? Once the determinant issues are identified, so this is the first step where you identify the various factors that affect these issues has to be discovered through focus group discussion and under 4 different headings, right? For the first issue, there could be four factors. Okay, it could be four factor, one, two, three factors. Let's say here the three factors, and you need to actually identify them under these advantage. What is the advantage of this first factor, the benefit, the constraint, and the disadvantage? Same thing comes with the second factor and the third factor. And finally, the constituent critical elements of each of these affecting factors should be identified and listed under this framework. This is how you put it. Okay, so you can look into these are the articles which tells you what is ABCD analysis and how to make use of it. Next tool that we have is business process modeling. It's basically a diagram which represents a sequence of activities. It shows events, actions, links, or connection points in a sequence which starts from end to end, like from one end to another. How it's going, the sequence of activities. So it's concerned basically with the mapping and the workflow to actually help us in understanding, analysis, and have positive change, flow diagrams. So these are the things, right? When it's actually which is it's all involved in this business process modeling. So it helps in identifying doing a mapping, understanding the workflow to help us in understanding and analysis and make some positive change. So it's also called the flow diagrams. It's done with the help of flow diagrams, right? Now, what happens? This process, it actually aims to improve the business performance. How? By optimizing the efficiency of connecting activities. And the final output is improvement in the way that the business process works. So it's also is seen as a quality management tool. Now, in what happens in this process, the focus of the improvements is on value added actions that make the customer service and experience better, and on reducing waste and time wasted, reducing the time that is wasted and the efforts. There are two main types of business process models. One, the as is or baseline model, that is the current situation, present, and the to be model, that is the new situation. And which are used, these are the two models which are used to analyze, test, and implement and improve the process. Look into the present situation and then see how to achieve the new situation. So basically, what happens is the main aim of this model is to illustrate a complete process, which would help the managers, consultants, and other staffs to actually improve the flow and streamline the process to make it more effective. What are the outcomes of this process? It's basically targeting for the value of the customers, how to improve the value of the customers, reduce the cost of the company, and increase profits. And there can be other secondary consequences also rising from successful business processing model. It can be there, which can be increased competitive advantage, market growth, better staff morale, and retention. Okay, so see this. This is an example of business process modeling, right? Draw the process you want to analyze, representing what is currently being done. Identify the areas that may be causing problem. Look into it and see what are analyze it, then draw out what the process should look like without the element which is causing the problem. And this would give you a guide of what changes you might want to bring in the process. Look into this and you can find it out. So these are some of the more links for business process modeling, of how you can use it, and examples. Next topic that we have is Porter's 5 forces analysis. Now, Porter's 5 forces analysis, it's a model that identifies and analyzes 5 competitive forces that is responsible to shape every single industry, and it also helps in identifying an industry's strengths and weaknesses. It can be applied to any segment of the economy for understanding the level of competition in that industry, and also to enhance a long-term profitability of the company. The number and power of companies, competitive rivals, Potential new market entrants, suppliers, customers, and substitute products influences a company's profitability. So, what are these five factors that we have? First comes up is competitive rivalry, which actually looks into the number of competitors and the strength of competitors. So, how many rivals? Who are they? What is their quality of their products and services as compared to yours? Which rivalry is more intense? And where the rivalry is more intense, companies can actually attract customers with aggressive price cuts and high impact marketing campaigns. In markets where there are a lot of rivals and your suppliers and buyers can go anywhere if they feel that they are not getting a good deal from you. On the other hand, where the competition is less, no one else is doing what you do, then you have the upper hand, your strength, and you have unhealthy profit. Supplier power. This is where we say by it's actually this is determined by how easy it is for your suppliers to increase their prices. How many potential suppliers you have? How unique is the product or service that they provide? How expensive would it be if you switch from one supplier to another? The more supply you have, it's easy to switch from one to someone else who's giving you at a cheaper rate, but the quality is good. But less suppliers, so then what happens? You are in a difficult position. You what Then it becomes difficult for you if you have less suppliers. Yes. The What happens if you do not have more suppliers on hand, then it becomes difficult for you. But there's another side to this. If the products like what happens, you want up some your the materials that you want, very few suppliers can actually provide it. So what happens? Everyone would want to, like, very few people actually need those raw materials other than you, so there are only few people in the market like you who want it. Then suppliers would do anything to ensure that they have a good relationship with you, and so they would be willing to give you at any prices that you charge because you are having an upper hand. Buyer power. So it's basically where you ask yourself, how is it easy it is for buyers to drive your prices down? How many buyers are there? How big are their orders? How much would it cost them to switch from your products and services to that of your rivals? Are your buyers strong enough to dictate terms to you? When you deal with only a few savvy customers, they have more power. But if you have more customers, your power increases. Threat for substitution. Threat for substitution, this is basically where it refers to the likelihood of your customers finding a different way of doing what you do. For example, if you supply a unique software product that automates an important process, people may substitute it by doing the process manually or by outsourcing it. Substitution, which is easy and cheap to make, can actually weaken your position and threaten your profitability. Threat of new entry. Your position can be also affected by people's ability to enter the market. So you need to think how easily this can be done, how easy it is to get a foothold in your industry or market, how much would it cost, and how tightly is your sector regulated. If it takes little money or effort to enter your market, compete effectively, or whether it you would have, and if you have very less protection for your key technologies, then what happens? Your rivals can actually enter the market very fast, weaken your position. But if you have strong and durable barriers to entry, then you can preserve your position. Advantages your favorable position, and you can take advantage of it, right? So this is the diagram of Porter's five forces that we have. And these are some of the links that we have which would help you to get more detailed information about Porter's five forces. So the next that we have is where we talk of MOST analysis. MOST, it's a framework for analyzing or planning the detail of what an organization does. It helps us in framing questions, starting from the high level mission of the organization and then coming down to the detailed of individual tactics. M for mission, O for objectives, S for strategy, T for tactics. So this tool actually works well when you want to evaluate if the current business operations, strategies, and tactics is in line with the mission and the vision statement. So when we talk of most, like most analysis, also it's called VMOST, very most. It can be split into two sections. The first part is mission and objectives of the company. Second is the strategy and tactics that will be used to achieve them. So why should anyone use most? It's a simple framework which defines every level of the business of a business projection. So when we talk of mission, what happens? We actually by when we define the mission, the company can create its objectives to work towards a mission. It can come up with strategies that can work towards the objectives and the tactics that will be needed to fulfill the strategy. So it gives an overview of the critical workings of the business. It helps in identifying the wastage, the streamlining processes, and achieving the goals that has to be achieved. Right. So it's a very important and essential piece for planning stage and forms the basis for an organization's strategy. Mission, when we say, so mission is the overall reason of any business. So one you actually this is something which every business, if you have your business, you want to achieve this, right? And it does not have a monetary focus. So think broader in what you want your business to solve. Objectives. So unlike the mission statement, there can be multiple goals that you want to achieve that will play into a much wider mission. That's much wider. Okay. Objectives in themselves are broad, and they also state what you want to be done in order to complete your mission. Strategy. When a strategy is created to overcome your competition and win in your sector, which means that you have a strong understanding of where your business sits at all times. If your strategy is if you create a strategy to overcome the competition and to actually win, so you know where you actually stand, and that's why you're creating that coming up with that strategy to overcome the challenges and win. And your strategy may change over time depending on how fast moving your niche is. The niche means opportunity. Tactics are low level and very specific actions that has to be taken to accomplish the strategy. And there's no limit on the number of tactics that can be used. And it will, again, tactics will be drastically changing depending on the knowledge, tools, and experience your business has. So, this is the most analysis technique framework, right? Where we have mission, objective, strategy, and tactics. Mission is a statement declaring what business the organization is and what it is intending to do. Objectives, the goals against which the organization's achievements can be measured. Strategy is the approach that has to achieve the objectives, that is to achieve the objectives, and mission is going to be taken by the organization in order. And T, that is tactics, that is the detailed means by which strategy will be implemented. So you see, these are the links which you can go through, which will tell you more about the most analysis. Okay. Other than this, there can be other root cause analysis techniques. One is the force field analysis, which visually shows all the forces that impact your problem or issue. Scatter diagram. It's in the form of graph that we use in the statistics, which shows the relationship of two variables, quantifies the correlation, showing how one variable affects the other. Okay. Next comes up is process mapping. So maps, what does it map? That the as is flow of activities that make up a process, which actually targets for excessive handoffs, the redundancies, and other root causes of inefficiencies. Points out all these factors which are actually the causes of inefficiencies. The next is what we have is benchmarking, where we compare the existing performance to another internal or external source. Identify issues which otherwise not revealed through other techniques. So you're comparing with your performance with the best in the industry. Okay. Okay, and this is the activity that is there which you can actually solve using these techniques. Okay, so that's all that we have from here. We will see you in next class.